What's up, folks? You know what it is. It's the CHGO Sky Podcast, part of the CHGO Sports and All City Sports Network. Whether you're in Chicago, Dallas, Philadelphia, Denver, or Phoenix, we got you covered. And speaking of Phoenix, we got a special guest with us on the show today. You know we always have the man, the myth, and the legend, your favorite flag football quarterback's favorite flag football quarterback, Stephen Pridgeon Garner, with us, and also his co-host, running buddy, backcourt mate from PHNX, Erika Lee Day in the house with us. Erika, first, how you doing?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday, you guys. Thanks for having me on the show again. I'm super excited to be here.
Of course. And Stephen, what's good with it, man?
Not much, man. Finish line is right around the corner. It don't get no closer than today. It's been a crazy W season, a whole lot of history made. I mean, a lot of history made this season. It's been fun. It's been fun. And hoping the Sky are able to kind of find their way into the playoffs through all of the injury adversity they're seeing at the end of the season.
Yeah, let's get right into that topic. Before we do, make sure you hit the like for yourself. Tell a friend, tell your family, tell your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, uncles, all of them. Tell them to come on the show, visit in with us, and hit the like, both for CHGO Sky and CHGO Sports and PHNX Mercury. You can do it for them too. First things first, Stephen, as you said, the Chicago Sky are somehow, some way still in this playoff race, even after a couple of tough losses this week against Phoenix on Sunday and then against the Atlanta Dream, who are right there in the thick of the 8th seed playoff race yesterday night. The Sky take on the Connecticut Sun in Connecticut tomorrow. The last 5 games of the season. No, not all teams are in action, but playoffs still on the line for the Chicago, Washington, and those same Atlanta Dream. We'll get those playoff scenarios up for you in a minute. But first things first, Erika, we've got you on. Stephen, I know both of you were watching that game on Sunday. What stood out to you as the defining reason, especially in a close game in the last quarter, that the Mercury were able to pull it out over the Sky, who desperately needed to win?
I think the biggest thing that stands out is just the ability to stay in the game, the stamina, and for lack of a better term, veteran leadership that's on the Mercury versus what you see on the Chicago Sky. And obviously, like, the Chicago Sky is a pretty good team and is headed in the right direction, in my opinion. But obviously the people on the Mercury have been in the league a lot longer and kind of just know how to hang in there and make adjustments at halftime and come out, a better team.
Yeah, well said. For me, for the Mercury, they had a couple of boogaboos. Rebounding was not the one that was in their favor against the Chicago Sky, even with Camila Cardoso only playing one half and ends with Reese not being available at all in that game. That's another topic for another day. My biggest thing, though, the turnovers. The Mercury only had 8 turnovers. And in tandem with that, they also had 29 assists. The most assists they've had post-Olympic, post-All-Star break. That's 29 assists on 36 field goals made. So they were moving the basketball consistently, even in a game that was played in a 7-point box pretty much the entire game. 16 lead changes, 8 times both teams were tied. Them being able to so consistently rely on the movement of the basketball and the movement of players in the half court to generate the advantages that they needed really made for one of their more organized offensive processes after the All-Star break. So I was very excited to see that from them. Nate Tibbetts was certainly elated to speak to that part of their offense showing up post-game on Sunday. And, we saw a lot of that trickle into yesterday's win over the Los Angeles Sparks for them as well.
I was able to catch the tail end of that game, and we haven't mentioned it yet, but what stood out to me in those last 5 minutes, not only did the Sky only get 2 points, both of those from the free throw line, 4 missed field goals, Kennedy Carter did not get many touches, I think more than 1 or 2. Now, I don't know whether that was, and I want to get this from you guys, I don't know whether that was a function of Phoenix's defense, overloading, because on the replay, on my rewatch, it didn't look like they were overhelping on her, or whether the Sky just went away from Chennedy Carter, who has proven time and again to be their best closer this year. Steven, what do you think?
Nah, they definitely were making sure that Chennedy wasn't gonna see or feel space. They made sure to load in the gaps, and by virtue of that, right in alignment with it, Rachel Banham was able to have her best game as a member of the Chicago Sky. She was able to play one pass away from a lot of primary actions, whether it was Chennedy Carter or Lindsay Allen leading the way. And the nail help from the Mercury was extremely aggressive in that game. And because they were so aggressive with their help, that left Rachel Banham wide open for opportunities to see the basket, not see a body within distance to impact her release from deep. And she was able to just let that thing fly to steal one of Nate Tibbetts' verbs from this season. She was letting it fly, and she was knocking it down, and she was barely touching the rim in that first quarter. Accounting for 17 of the Chicago Sky's 24 points in that first quarter was Rachel Banham, 12 points and 5 assist points created via 2 assists. So a lot of that attention that she was able to not see came from them giving a lot to Lindsay Allen, keeping her from getting a piece of the paint, and even more so Chennedy Carter doing the same with her.
Erika, go ahead. What were your takeaways from the Mercury's bottling up of Chennedy Carter when the Sky needed her late?
Well, Chennedy has definitely been the biggest difference maker in terms of the Chicago Sky all season, in my opinion. She's been electric to watch all season, and they kind of did just shut her down, and they stopped allowing her to penetrate the paint. And that's really her strong suit, right? So when they take that away from her, it kind of becomes really challenging for the Chicago Sky to hang in the game.
That also talks to an issue that the Sky have had, as we've seen over the course of the season, with spacing. And with perimeter shooting, especially since the Marina Mabry trade. We'll get into that a little bit, how they've rectified that somewhat since that trade. But as difficult as that Phoenix loss was, and it was difficult when you don't have to go against Kalia Copper, who just burned Chicago in their first matchup, and it wasn't as much of a factor in the second, but the Sky still lost by double digits. That's a game you really want, especially given that you lost to Washington last week and are chasing both them and Atlanta in the playoff race. The loss to Atlanta, I think, really, really stings. But also, I think, Steven, I want to get your take on this first. I think the Sky at some point after the Phoenix loss kind of cashed their chips in and said, we're looking towards next season, just because if you're trying to make the playoffs, Chennedy Carter, to me, plays. If the injury is manageable, then she's on the floor. But seeing Chennedy Carter on the injury report, I feel like told me what I needed to know about whether the Sky were looking towards the draft and the offseason, or whether they were still making a push for the playoffs.
It definitely felt like that to me when I got the notification that they were not going to be having either of Camila or Chennedy in that all-important game. It definitely, I won't say it felt like they were bowing out, but it definitely seemed like they weren't maybe valuing that playoff spot as much as the other teams that they were vying for contention with. Needless to say, these last couple of games, considering the constraints with that 8 seed and the implications with the win or loss, they've been in playoff mode since the end of last week, or maybe a little bit before the end of last week. Since that game against Dallas, they've been in playoff mode, as well as the Mystics, as well as the Dream. So to see them not have Chennedy, again, I can't speak because I'm not in the locker room. I'm also not a doctor. I can't speak to the extent of the injury that she sustained. I think it was ankle that they listed, right, for Chennedy. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think you're right, actually.
I think it was ankle. I can't speak to it.
Was it an ankle or a foot injury?
It was lower body. I can't remember if it was foot or ankle. Either way, I can't speak to it. I do know she got kind of rolled up on in the second half of that game against the Phoenix Mercury on Sunday. And she was down for a couple of seconds. She was able to get back up, and she never exited the game because of injury. But I think that's just one of those things that really felt like maybe they aren't as locked in on and as dead set on that 8 seed because of the injuries that they've seen to Camila and Angel in particular. That's definitely how it kind of came across to me yesterday when I saw that.
Yeah, the injuries have definitely hurt you guys over and over and over again. What I will say, and the thing that impressed me the most about that first quarter, and we'll go back to it, is Rachel Banham. And I want to talk about this because it made my mom tell me, oh, so Chicago Sky is a good 3-point shooting team. And I said, Mom, no, no, that is just simply not the case. But the case was that way on what day was that? Sunday. Oh my goodness,
Sunday,
I don't even know
yep.
what day it is anymore. But on Sunday, the Chicago Sky were hanging in there with at the time one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, and they were outright beating them at it. And so, the Chicago Sky has made improvements to their spacing, has found a way to make these new fits that were a part of trades kind of work within their system. And albeit because of injuries, you guys are probably correct in that, they're not exactly valuing that 8 seed as much as some other teams might be. But that being said, that doesn't make them any less of a team that's been getting better and better all season, regardless of all the injuries that they've seen.
To your point and to your mom's point, Chris, you can kind of check this real quick while I'm speaking. The Sky had 14 3-pointers made. Needless to say, that's by far the most threes that they've knocked down this season. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. I think that might have come within one of the franchise record for 3-pointers made in a single game. And that just really speaks to how prolific they were. They weren't just like happenstance knocking down threes. They were taking them in the rhythm and flow of their offense. They had the right players taking the attempts that they were able to create, and they were creating those attempts based off of the Phoenix Mercury and their game plan for this game, betting on staying a whole lot closer to the paint, taking away drive opportunities and paint touches, and erring on the Sky spraying and praying, essentially. And they weren't praying because they were spraying and they were doing it confidently in that game on Sunday at Wintrust to conclude the home part of their regular season schedule. So it was impressive to see. Rachel Banham spearheaded she spearheaded it quite literally, all of it in that first quarter. And we'll speak more to her, but seeing that team kind of take the baton from her knocking down her 3 PAs to Dana Evans getting involved, Chennedy getting involved, Michaela getting involved was just very impressive to see. And then you can't help but think, what if they had this shooting luck more times than just once or twice this season? Muted. There you go.
When you talk about luck, your basketball teams, like more so than other teams in baseball or even like hockey, they have to make their own luck, and that comes from getting the attempts, getting the right spacing, getting high percentage shot opportunities. You talk about shot diet so much. We're going to talk about Rachel Banham's shot diet, but the Sky's overall shot is predicated on paint twos and sometimes in the mid range. That's been the extent of their spacing. To be honest, it kind of bugs me that they've utilized the Banhammer, as Lawrence Benedetto would call her, in this way. But they had Rachel Banham for this amount of time, and you remember how low I was on the trade. She's put up double-digit scoring numbers. Let's go with the graphic now, if we've got it, Joey. We've already talked about it so much. Let's spoil it. Rachel Banham over the last 2 games, you see the numbers there: 17 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists against Phoenix, and what ended up being a 5-point loss, and then 22 points leading the team against Atlanta. Both of those were season or career highs for her with the Sky, and then 10 points in the game before. So she had 3 double-digit scoring games in 21 games with Connecticut, and then 5 with the Sky. 3 of those came in the last 3 games. It felt like desperation almost, man, and that's what bugs me about it. I know I'm wrong, but that's how it feels.
Yeah, Joey, if we could get the graphic back up real quick. Rachel being able to find a rhythm for the Chicago Sky in this late season stretch is just extremely important. She got 11 3-pointers made over the last 2 games on 21 attempts. Both the 11 makes and the 21 attempts are quite literally leading the league in terms of, like I said, makes and attempts from deep. And that just means she's just taking every opportunity that she gets and she's letting it fly. And I'm hoping that these numbers, I wanted them to be brought back up on the screen so that they could be just kind of internalized a little bit better. But that's just, she's absurd right now. And she's operating exactly as this team needs her to. And it's going to be important for her to operate like that going forward as they transition to next season.
I will let everybody know I'm at the merchandise mart, so the rumbling that you hear in the background is not a train or a ship. It's just a man rolling by with a dolly. But we'll get more into Rachel Banham as well as some Phoenix Mercury talk since we've got Erika on here. But first, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Coors Light. The end of a long WNBA season, whether your team is at the top of the playoff standings, whether they're right in the thick of the playoff race, or whether they were eliminated a couple of weeks ago, it's a good time to choose chill and let that discourse just melt away from you. And you always want to choose chill with Coors Light. Always cold packaged, cold filtered, never frozen. As cold as the Colorado Rockies when you see the mountains are blue and LL Cool J is pointing at you saying that he needs love. That's what a time to pick up a Coors Light. And you know, if you don't know, now you know. You can get Coors Light delivered straight to your door by going to instacart.com/CHGO Dunk. That's instacart.com/CHGO Dunk, the thing that none of us can do. Steven probably back in the day. Erika could probably dunk right now. Erika could throw down a couple alley-oops. But you know where to
I'm
go.
7 feet tall.
Made me think of something else. Either way, head to the website, get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. So when you want to choose chill, choose Coors Light. Cold as the Mountain Rockies. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Always drink responsibly. And we got a new read for you. And oh, I am so happy because I want to tell you about Empire Today. If you're from Chicago, you know how important and how iconic Empire is in Chicago. So with Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. It's the best place to get new flooring. So of course there's copycats, but you can't beat Empire on quality, service, speed. So competitors advertise low quality products. Then Empire, they won't carry them. They won't promise the lowest prices because anybody who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. So keep shopping for Floor's simple, curated product selection, and they have a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space in your home. And they can provide upfront advice unlike big box stores, and they pride themselves on their convenient shop-at-home service. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code CHGO at EmpireToday.com. Restrictions do apply. See EmpireToday.com/CHGO for details. And just because I never got to say it myself, it's 588-2300 Empire. I had to, man. That's more classic than the Victory Auto Records commercial right there.
Yeah.
All right,
I agree.
Look, you know what it is. Erika, I wish you could have grown up in Chicago in the 90s. So you knew what we were talking about. I will send you some classic Chicago ads after the show is off. How's that?
I'll be waiting.
And they'll all be super grainy, 180p.
Yeah,
all of that.
exactly what they're gonna look like
for sure.
Are y'all trying to age yourselves right now?
Hey, I do every day. I just talked about how I couldn't dunk. What do you mean?
Bad knees.
Coming back to game action, I know I said I want to talk about Phoenix for a second because even though the Phoenix Mercury are 19-20, they've had their issues with some middle of the road playoff teams like Indiana and at times Washington. I want to get you guys' viewpoint on how Phoenix looks coming into this because with Nate Tibbetts, new coach coming in and implementing a new system, honestly, new ownership with Matt Ishbia as well, and a bit of changing personnel with Natasha Cloud coming in, Celeste Taylor late in the season. Erika, first, how do you think Phoenix looks going into the playoffs?
First of all, I want to give big shouts to Celeste because she has bounced around from team to team to team quite literally this season, all season from start to end. She spent the first little half, I guess, with Indiana not really doing much. Then she came to Phoenix for a week. Then she was in Connecticut for a week, and then she's boarding a flight back to Phoenix. And somehow she has managed to carve herself out extremely meaningful minutes with the Mercury over and over and over again. Whether Kalia Copper is playing or not, Celeste is primarily playing that backup point guard position behind Natasha Cloud. while sometimes it doesn't always look the cleanest on the offensive end, the defensive end almost makes up for the deficiencies on the offensive end. And I was kind of telling Steven this on Monday. I am of 100% belief that Celeste's offense will catch up, but her defense is by far what sets her out in this draft class compared to literally everybody else that's her size, position from this class. So yes, like David said, we're all Celestials in this chat anyways. And that being said, though, to play the game that they played without Kalia Copper is extremely impressive. And Steven and I also spoke to this about how we're kind of glad that this was a little bit of a closer game because the squad has seen some rougher games on the road. So the fact that they were able to, manage to pull this one out without Kalia, their leading scorer, without Beck Allen, who we've talked about is such a puzzle piece for this team, and ultimately just find a way to win the game, I am impressed. That being said, I do believe the first half was probably one of the best halves we've seen from the Mercury all season, especially out of the Olympic break. Maybe I'm a little crazy for saying all season, but especially since the Olympic break, they have really struggled in the first half of games. And so to see them come out with such urgency on both ends of the floor, while it was a pretty high scoring game, especially in that first half, it was still a much better showing as far as rotations and quite frankly, just willingness to pass the ball was so much better in this game than through the last 10 games that we've seen from the Mercury.
Yeah, you start with Celeste. Celeste has been she's just been a joy to watch on the defensive end of the floor. She gives another player that brings a little bit of what Natasha Cloud brings at the point of attack, brings a little bit of what Sophie Cunningham brings in toughness, brings a little bit of versatility that Rebecca Allen brings. She's like a nice little mixture of all three of those players in her own type of dynamic and what she brings defensively. She can pick up 94 feet. She can guard, she can guard forwards, she can guard some of the bigger forwards, not necessarily centers, but she's comfortable switching 1 through 4 and bringing activity, whether she's defending in a post, whether she's making rotations, whether she's guarding the ball up top to start off a defensive possession. She just understands it. She gets it done. There's a play from last night where she's picking up 94 feet with Natasha Cloud, and she kind of switches on the fly, and then they're able to converge after the ball handler crosses half court. They trap the ball handler, Mercury get a steal, and that was a kind of an inception point of a big time run that they saw in that third quarter once they lost Brittany Griner. So ultimately take back the lead from the deficit that they were down at halftime with, and ultimately never relinquish that lead going through the rest of the finish line. There's also a moment against the Chicago Sky on Sunday where she's the low man. It's Chennedy and Camila getting into an empty corner pick and roll. Or excuse me, it's Rachel and Camila getting into an empty corner pick and roll. Brittany Griner steps up to stop Rachel from knocking down or even attempting yet another three-pointer. That opens up the roll for Camila as she gets downhill. Rachel hits her promptly on the bounce pass. And Camila ends up getting a charge called on her because Celeste is not early, but she's right on time. If she's early, Camila can Euro step. She can throw up a floater. But because of the timing part of her rotation, she's able to stick her nose in there, take a charge on the 6'7" rolling big downhill, and just hops right back up like nothing happened, jogs back on offense, and the Mercury get rolling after the dead ball. It's like little moments like that where she just compiles an impact over the course of a game. To Erika's point, to the extent where Nate doesn't mind her airballing the three-pointer or shooting one off the side of the backboard like she did in the fourth quarter of that game against the Sky, because she's going to come down court and she's going to pick up 94 feet and she's going to force turnovers. And she also has the trust of all the veterans on that roster as well. After one of the three-pointers that she airballed when she was wide open, Natasha Cloud embraces her right away and tells her, "Hey, kid, you all right? You got the next one, but we need you here on defense." And what do? After that possession starts, they go and get another stop. It's just little moments like that where you've seen Kalia Copper take her under her wing, literally as wings, but also figuratively as a leader. Same thing with Natasha Cloud, like I mentioned. Same thing with Diana Taurasi. She's right at home with this Mercury team. They've needed a lot of what she's brought. The context that they provide for her to be herself also works in conjunction extremely well. And it's kind of a marriage in a basketball sense because of it.
do want to confirm, Stephen, with you that that 14 three-pointers made was one off the franchise record for the Sky. Some interesting data in there. That 15 three-pointers made was also against Seattle, or sorry, Phoenix in 2007, and the Sky also lost that game.
Mm.
So I guess making a lot of threes doesn't always translate to winning games. Maybe the Atlanta analytics cats are wrong. Maybe they're just wrong. I want to come back because that Celeste Taylor is interesting. And Joey, if we could bring up that comment that we got from Dirty Reg 22 about Michaela Onyenwere, because I know Stephen, you had talked about Michaela's impact. Dirty Reg thought that Michaela would do more last game against Atlanta. And I know that they're not the same player, but they've had a similar usage as kind of a utility fill in where it's needed player for both teams this season. So for both of you, Erika and Stephen, Erika first, do you think that the Sky coaching staff could take anything from the way that Phoenix has utilized Celeste Taylor, whether they keep Michaela Onyenwere or whether they pick up a similar player in the offseason?
I think Michaela brings a similar skill set to the Sky that Celeste brings, and I don't think it's like a perfect, parallel, but I do think that there is some knowledge that they could gain from how the Mercury has been pretty much forced to use Celeste Taylor in the circumstances that they have. And that's no shot at any of the other guards that they have backing Tasha, but it's been the way it's been. And so, I would hate for the Sky hand to be forced in the same way, but at the same time, it kind of already is. And so they need to find a way to make her comfortable and doing what she does best. And I think that's specifically what Nate has done with Celeste, is make her comfortable doing her job and not asking her to do more than what she already is good at.
I do, and correct me if I'm wrong. You were asking how could the Mercury use Celeste in ways that the Sky used Michaela, or was it vice versa?
That was vice versa. Is there anything that the Sky
Okay.
could take from how the Mercury have utilized Celeste?
No, I would say no, just because it's not, like Erika said, apples to apples as far as a comparison goes. They are similar, but I think Celeste is a lot more guard oriented, where Michaela is more front court oriented. In their natural positions and also their natural skill sets. Michaela is a whole lot more comfortable operating with the ball around the rim, whereas Celeste, though her handle isn't where she might desire for it to be, or Nate even might desire for it to be, she's a lot more comfortable on the perimeter than she is in the paint. So it's not similar in that respect, but they do defend the basketball extremely similarly. Um, I think if I'm speaking to Michaela and hoping that Celeste can get to this level, the corner three-point shooting, Michaela is at 38%, well above league average generally for three-point shooters, but especially from the corners. That 38% clip allows for you to stay on the court. And then the other big thing for Celeste is being able to do things past just cutting. Michaela, which I'll speak to later on, Chris, has been extremely good screening for this Chicago Sky team post-Olympic break. A lot of times she'll set an early offense ball screen, and if they get a switch, she'll go right to the post on that strong side. They'll pitch it to her, and she can either pass off of a double team that comes because of the mismatch, or she can obviously catch and go right away, navigate to the free throw line, or finish near the restricted area, which she's done extremely well post-Olympic break too. It's like little things in functionality where once she gets more comfortable on offense, she'll naturally allow for her impact on defense to grow more profound past just a 15-minute window in terms of minutes played. She'll be able to get closer to 20 to 22 minutes and potentially start if she's in the right type of context.
Very sage advice. I do want to see. I mean, we have an off season to go yet, but I want to see with how Mercurial. That was not a pun, but legitimately how Mercurial Michaela has been with the Sky. Sometimes she'll have a game where she puts up 10 points in a quarter, finishes with 17, 18, and some games she's mainly relied on for defense, and some games she just has an off game. But I want to see where she comes in. The one thing I did notice from both of those games, one in the Phoenix game, as well as Chicago shot, Phoenix was only down 1 or 2 points at the half. And in the Atlanta game, when they were up 14 at the break, nobody on the Dream had over 10 points. It was a very balanced scoring attack. And that's something I'd like to see more from the Sky. It felt very Kennedy and Angel and Camilla reliant. in the second half, and some of that is personnel. But I want to see, and I've said it time and again, I want to see how the coaching staff evolves their offensive philosophy as we go forward. Erika, we're coming up on your time. We're coming up on our ad break. The Mercury, I believe, are locked into the 7th seed as they're one game down from Phoenix, but they're Indiana, I should say. They had not beaten Indiana this year, so it's locked into the 7th seed against the Minnesota Lynx. You're way too early playoff predictions for that series.
I'm going to say it. I believe that the Phoenix Mercury win game 1 in Minnesota. I am of the belief that they have enough reason to want to come back home to play another game in Phoenix, that when you have the embarrassment of riches, as Stephen and I have drilled into everyone's brain on our show all season, that there's no reason that they can't split. That being said, Minnesota Lynx are playing some extremely, extremely good basketball. Alexa Filippo just, let us all know this morning, best team in the W, hottest streak, 14 out of 15 of their last games. I don't know if you guys have heard, but the Phoenix Mercury have some injuries, and once they overcome those, they're coming for the Minnesota Lynx. So I got the Phoenix Mercury winning game 1, and I hate making predictions because I hate being wrong. But I'm going to say I back the Merc, so I'm going to take the Mercury in game 3 too. Fuck it. I don't care. Sorry if I am not allowed to say that here, but go Mercury. They win in 2 out of those 3 games. I think they send the Lynx home, packing back to Minnesota, and then I get to travel again to another playoff series. So that's what I'm praying for. I'm trying to see Diana back in footprint one last time. I got tomorrow. It's bobblehead night. If you're watching this from Phoenix, be there or be square. And if I find out you're square, you can catch these hands.
The always, always, always brilliant and entertaining Erika Lee Day from PHNX Mercury. Erika, thank you so much for coming on with us. Everybody in the comments, thank you for interacting with Erika. Shout out to Olga McFubin, who was watching and Chris Melton, who were watching the Diamondbacks game for Erika. Let them know that they win. Erika, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. You know how much I detest the Lynx, so I hope you're right.
I hope
This
I'm
is
right
this is very true. And side note, how wild would it be if if the Suns got knocked out by the Minnesota Lynx, and then the Mercury turn around and get knocked out by the Minnesota Lynx and Timberwolves respectively. Excuse me. Just saying that would be wild. That's all I'm gonna say.
The way that things
I'm
come
sick.
down.
I'm sick. No, it ain't happening. I'm manifesting good vibes for the Mercury. Just send good juju our way, everybody, okay?
Erika, thanks for coming on with us. We'll let you get
I'll
out
see
of
y'all
here.
soon. Bye.
All right, folks, let's take another quick break to thank our sponsor, of course, Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. Whether you're all the way down south in Champaign or all the way up in South Beloit, just below the border, of course, in the city of Wynn, Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary, your one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup, especially at their location in Wrigleyville and in River North, which I've checked out both of those. If you're a pro, they've got you covered. You know you love Cresco and FloraCal. And of course, we told you about the Good News Tea Time disposable vape because even though it's almost fall, it's still time to get out there on the links. So visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every single day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions do apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for ages 21 and over or Illinois medical card holders. And it's football season, y'all know it. We talk about it all the time. So the Bears and the Colts have a watch party this weekend at Joe's on Weed Street. It's $10 general admission and a reserved table for 4 or 6 people. Not 5, not 7, 4 or 6. $65 drink package upgrade includes all you can drink Miller Lite and White Claw, plus mimosas, Bloody Marys, craft and import beers, ciders, seltzers, premium mixed drinks, and soda from 11:30 until the end of the game. That's a deal that you cannot wait to get to. You must be 21 and over to attend, but check out that Bears Colts watch party this weekend at Joe's on Weed Street. That is 940 West Weed Street, right by the North and Clybourne Red Line. And of course, you know that the CHGO Bears crew is going to London in October, and they're going to Phoenix, Arizona on November 3rd. There's still some packages remaining. Head to truefantravel.com for both of those. There's an all-inclusive tailgate and a party boat cruise at that London trip, and you get a 3-night stay at a 4-star hotel with a Q&A with Bears alumni if you head to see them in Phoenix. And of course, if you're a CHGO diehard, you know you get live shows every team, every day, post-game shows, premium written content at allchgo.com, 20% off events, dope merch for all teams, and a free shirt when you become a member. So if you're not a member, I don't know why you're not a member, but go to allchgo.com right now and become a member. Chicago diehard, CHGO diehard for the Sky, the Bears, the White Sox, the Cubs, the Fire, the Red Stars, the Blackhawks, all of them, and the Bulls. Of course, we know I got our boys over at CHGO Bulls. So become a CHGO diehard, get access to all that beautiful stuff right now. I don't know what you're waiting on. Yeah, we all look at that. We got boos in the chat. Everybody's sad. Erika left. Look, come on, it happens. You know, we had limited time for Erika today.
Listen, y'all want to see more Erika? Y'all hop on the Mercury podcast with us. We got a special playoff edition episode coming on Friday, early in the afternoon. So tap in with us then. I think it's 1:00 Arizona time, if I'm not mistaken. So lock in with us for that. We got a lot of links talk to get to.
All right, let's talk about these playoff scenarios because it's still the last day of the season tomorrow, Thursday, the 19th. Games tip off about the same time. It can't tip off at exactly the same time with the time zones. But, of course, the league wants to make sure that teams can't change their lineups or mail it in case they want to lock in their playoff seeding. So if we bring up that playoff scenarios graphic, Joey, right now, Atlanta in the driver's seat after their win over the Sky on Tuesday night, 14 wins over 25 losses. Washington and Chicago knotted at 13 and 26. Washington, of course, with the tiebreaker over the Sky this year. And tomorrow night, the Sky are at Connecticut. Atlanta's in New York to play the Liberty, and Washington has Indiana coming into D.C. The Sky will get to the playoffs if they win and both teams lose. So if the Sky beat the Sun, Atlanta loses to the Liberty, and Washington loses to the Fever, then the Sky are into the playoffs. The Mystics are in if they win and Atlanta loses by virtue of that tiebreaker. The Sky's results don't matter then. And Atlanta has two scenarios here. If they win, they're in. Or if they lose and both teams lose, then they maintain their hold on the 8th spot. This is hard to say without the benefit of not just advanced statistics, probably quantum mechanics would be at work here. But Steven, at a glance, especially with the teams that their opponents tomorrow, what do you think happens?
I think it's just far too simple for Atlanta. And remind me again, who is Atlanta playing tomorrow?
See, this is the thing. They've got the Liberty in New York, and we know what the Liberty have done this season.
The Liberty will not be playing their starters, their regular minute stretch. They also won't have the same sense of urgency to want to win that particular game either. I already locked up, I believe, the best record in the W. They have not much of anything to play for past just trying to sustain a little bit of rhythm. And also, if the Atlanta Dream win, I believe that's the team that they will be playing in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, too. So they're not going to be playing any cards. They're not going to be trying to show their hand in any capacity. I don't think their starters play more than 20 minutes on an individual basis. All of those things being said, obviously the Liberty are still very much a deep team. They can still put out some fairly solid numbers and make it tough on Atlanta. But I do think Atlanta handles their business, gets the win, and they put a final step on that 8th seed.
It's hard to disagree with you. I think if there's anything to be said on the other side, as you said, Atlanta's going to be playing New York in the first round if they do win or if they do make the playoffs. However, as injured as the Sky are, if the Liberty wanted to, they could go for that W and then hope the Sky win. Again, you have to hope the Sky win for that scenario to play out. I think the danger team here really is Washington, with as well as they played in the second half, something that I didn't necessarily expect, especially after the Maisha Hines-Allen trade. It's not an addition by subtraction. I think they just had less of a rotation to deal with, and they even things out. Plus, getting Shakira Austin back from injury really helped. but we're seeing some good play from Julie Van Loo, what you would expect from Brittany Sykes and Aaliyah Edwards. In a year without Caitlin or Angel would be up there for Rookie of the Year consideration. As it is, she'll get some votes. So that just tells you how good Washington's playing. Atlanta, they have to win, but the Mystics, I think, have a better shot than anybody that we've mentioned outside of New York probably resting their starters to win that game because the Fever, I think at this point most of the teams above the 8th seed are locked into their spots. So the Fever could conceivably rest their starters too, especially as we talked about all season. Caitlin Clark coming off of a full college slate, and the only break she's really got since then was the Olympics. So the Fever could say, hey, we know where we're going. We've got to play a tough first round matchup with Connecticut. Let's not take the chance to get anybody injured.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Even for teams like the Mercury, who could certainly use another win compiled to bring them to 500 to close the regular season and just generally continue to establish a rhythm. I do think that a player like Kalia Copper, who's missed the last handful of games, will be back for tomorrow's game to kind of reestablish a little game rhythm before the playoffs come around. But also, like last night, especially for the Mercury side of things, they won that game against the Sparks, but Diana Taurasi did not play a lot of minutes. She hardly played in the second half in particular. That was obviously with reasoning. Nate Tibbetts not wanting to run up the minutes for any of his players too much. And we saw some interesting rotations come from that. And I think we'll see a lot more of that, maybe even to a more exaggerated degree for a lot of teams tomorrow, like you said, who already have their positioning in terms of the standings for the playoffs wrapped up already. It just makes too much sense. And I think that that's something that will ultimately play into the favor of the Atlanta Dream. And also think the fact that players like Aaliyah Edwards for the Mystics, in addition to Shakira Austin not being available for tomorrow's game, really kind of hurts and goes against them if they were trying to potentially wiggle their way back into the AC. So valiant effort on the end of the Mystics. I think the healthiest team between those three teams that we're speaking to vying for the AC is the Atlanta Dream. And if you're talking about them going up against the New York Liberty, who are in the first round, are expected to sweep whoever it is, I mean, the best team, the team that's most healthy, probably the most deserving of that opportunity. But it's just tough to say all of these things when you see the way that the Chicago Sky have really tried to work and iron out the kinks and really go against the grain of that 12th seed expectation that was placed upon them, and the way that they've shattered that ceiling and really operated as a top 8 team for nearly the season's entirety.
Talking about the Sky at the end there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what's so disappointing. Going 3-12 after the break, it just tanked every possible chance for the Sky to get a better seeding in the playoffs. They had a shot at the 7th seed when we came back from the Olympics, and then everything just fell apart. And so I think that's something that I want to as we come towards the close, I want to talk about with you how you judge this season. We haven't finished the season, but at the beginning of the year, most pundits had the Sky finishing last in the league. They are 2 spots ahead of that no matter what. A lot of them, had this as a very kind of rough year in terms of a learning curve, I think, for Angel Reese, and we saw how well she played. We saw how well Camila Cardoso played after coming back from her injury, and especially after the Olympic break. And we saw the emergence of Kennedy Carter as well. I think that, on the other hand, Teresa Weatherspoon, has had some bumps in the road in terms of coaching, rotations, and we saw a very limited team offensively in terms of spacing and perimeter shooting. So it's odd for me to say, but I do feel disappointment that the Sky are so far out of contention for a better playoff spot. Never mind the 8th seed. If you knew what you knew now at the beginning of the year that the Sky would be in this spot, how would you feel about the season?
Well, I would feel just how I said I felt at the beginning of the season. I didn't have expectations for this team. It was just entirely too much newness. I knew that they had potential. The potential is quite literally undeniable when you add Camila Cardoso coming off a championship in college to Angel Reese, the most previous champion. You establish an identity that's inside out oriented. You're going to be tough, gritty, hard nosed, and a lot of that successes you're going to find on the defensive end of the floor. We've seen this guy play to that identity a handful this season. Remember, Chris, in the first episode, especially after the draft, where we were talking about the 12th place predictions, this, that, and the third. After we got done laughing it off because that was absolutely ridiculous. I don't care about if you could anticipate injuries from other teams happening or not. This guy team was not the worst roster in the W, period. Point blank, period. I feel like that was very lazy analysis on the end of many professionals in this space of ours, and I would love to talk about that with them if they ever had the time to. Right here on this show, actually. Nonetheless, I always said, and I made sure to let everybody know that I was speaking to in person as well as over the podcast here, to strip the expectations from this team, whether you felt like they might be the worst team in the W or you felt like they might be a 7 seed or 8 seed potentially, or somewhere in between. I always said to just strip the team of expectations and just assess them for the progress that they make. Are they developing the skills of Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese? Are they continuing to find ways to feature those two together to get the absolute most out of them? Are they identifying the things that they'll eventually need on the margins around these two players to be their optimized selves going into next season and the season after that and the season after that? If I'm going into the season asking those questions and I look at the emergence of Chennedy Carter, the skill development and functionality and usage development of both Camila and Angel Reese, and the impacts that they've made just as general basketball players, stripped them of the rookie titling of everything, I would say yes, this is about where I expected them to be. I did say that I felt like they would sneak into the playoffs as the 8 seed if I had to put a specific positioning on them. And the fact that they're even in the conversation and letting the dice roll where it rolls going into the final game of the regular season tomorrow, not even a two-mile horn. I'm just saying that it feels like it just made too much sense for them to be in this particular situation versus being the absolute gutter of the WNBA in any capacity. And I also think that them being able to get off of the contract of Marina Mabry, get some draft compensation and back from that, but also be able to have pieces that are under team control for past just this season, and Rachel Banham and Mariah Jefferson really matters. And I just think those things really matter. So all in all, I feel like this is right where I expected them to be. And I think this is a successful season for the franchise, transitioning with so much newness.
You put together a compelling argument. Of course, we're going to talk more about how the season looks in review after tomorrow's games when we come back for our next show. A couple of bits before we close out. Kayla Davis signed a rest of the season contract with the Sky. And though the rest of the season is only tomorrow, unless the Sky do make the playoffs, shout out to Kayla Davis. Been on the Sky a couple of times. Always good to see Kayla back in the league. And it was also announced not too long ago that the WNBA will be back in Portland in 2026. The announcement that just about a year ago went south after just 3 days has now been confirmed. The ownership group, the Baytals that have purchased the National Women's Soccer League Portland Thorns, will be the owners and operators of the new franchise in Portland that will play at least its first season in the Moda Center. So honestly, that's very exciting. I saw a note on the story that in their last season of operation, the Portland Fire had a higher attendance at the Moda Center than the Minnesota Lynx or the Seattle Storm that season. So cool to see the WNBA back in Portland. Expansion is coming very fast on the horizon, along with Golden State and Toronto next year. And one last thing, shout out to Dirty Reg for the correction. After we went through 2 tiebreakers, the Atlanta Dream at 7-15 have a better record against positive 500 opponents than the Washington Mystics. So the Dream have 3 scenarios to make the playoffs, whereas Washington and Chicago only have 1. Thanks for that, Dirty Reg. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you to Erika Lee Day from PHNX Mercury who came on with us. Of course, always a treat to see Erika. And as Steven said, check out the PHNX Mercury show going live every single week, and check them out all throughout the playoffs. Steven and Erika have a great time over there, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of them over the next coming weeks. Thank you to all of you in the comments. You know what to do. Hit the like for us, for yourselves, for your family, for your friends, for your dog, for your cat, for everything that you got with you. And of course, thank you to our producer, Joey Spathis on the Wheels of Steel, the man with the graphics card who always does such great work for us. This is Stephen Garner on this side. I'm Chris Pennant on this side. This has been the CHGO Sky Show, a part of CHGO Sports and the All-City Sports Network. Whether you're in Chicago, Denver, Philly, Dallas, or Phoenix, we got you covered. Until next time, folks, be good, do great things, keep your head above the clouds. We'll see you.